like I said, things are gonna get a whole lot more vloggy.
Whoa, what the Let's recontextualize. Apparently, I'm an engineer and I'm building a sensor suite. Sensors give scientists the superpower to see things that our normal eyeballs can't. Like a thermometer, it allows scientists to see temperature. A sensor suite is basically a collection of different sensors bundled together into one system, working as a team to gather data about the environment or whatever you're studying. My sensor suite is going to be attached to the end of a ship sailing through the marginal ice zone of Antarctica. From here, it will capture data about the size, thickness, density, and waves that surge through what scientists call pancake ice flows. Yummy. But why would we want to do this? Well, the ice in this region is kind of like the mother that cleans up all of humanity's mess. It keeps the earth nice and cool and gets rid of all our stinky ass CO2 emissions. But mama's about to go buy milk. The ice is melting! And what makes this double bad is that our mathematical models that predict how the ice is going to behave are completely wrong. This is largely because we don't have enough data. Here's a picture that I snapped at a conference which shows a map of how much data has been collected in what area. Blue means lots of data collected and yellowish reddish means very few data collected. It's pretty grim. This means we don't understand the ice, and secondly, we don't know what we need to do in order to protect it. This is where my little yellow box of destiny fits in. Hopefully, with the wide range of parameters that it can collect, it'll fill in some of these gaps and save planet Earth. Or at least help to. Okay, let's get back to trying to vlog. The videos have caught you up to date mostly by summarizing large pieces of information.
So, instead of doing summaries like we've done in the past, I now want to take you along with me on the journey of discovery. Join along for those eureka moments. But vlogging has a unique set of challenges for me. As a 24-year-old man, the prospect of speaking to a phone and vlogging in front of all my friends, it's gonna get me bullied, but we're gonna push through, because one day they'll be asking for autographs. This week we've got a couple things going on. Firstly, I gotta stop. Right about now is when my dreams of engineering vlogging were crushed by reality. Why is talking in front of people so hard? I did the whole thing. I went up to them and said, listen, I'm gonna be doing this thing. It's gonna be cringe for both of us. I have some bad news.
What is it?
It's reached that time in my YouTube journey where I have to start filming in public. It's gonna be painful for me. It's gonna be painful for you.
It's gonna be tough. What happened to a normal week, Daniel? We're back to normal.
This is a normal week.
I like a microphone. Booyah. Booyah.
Booyah!
But it was just too weird. I just ended up doing like admin type stuff today, and I had stuff I needed to do.
Like, it genuinely had me questioning, how do people do this? So I watched some of my favorite engineering YouTubers online, and it turns out the answer is, they just don't. Rather, they opt for filming whatever they're doing in the moment, and then explaining it with some post-facto voiceovers. And that kind of makes a lot of sense to me, because I want to sound all authoritative and like I know what I'm doing, but a lot of the time I'm experimenting. I don't actually know. So for the rest of this vlog, I'll be doing that voiceover good stuff, you know, so it really looks like I'm a professional and I know what the hell I'm doing. Okay, so off the bat, the little piece of variable that I use to hardware trigger my stereo cameras broke. It was kind of janky anyway, so task number one involved upgrading my system to a nice 3D printed enclosure that would slide next to my stereo camera.
that out the way, I could tackle this week's primary mission, giving my sensor suite superhuman X-ray vision. Calibrate the thermal camera with the rest of the sensors so I could overlay the thermal data over the other data type. Whoa. In order for me to do this, I need to establish a relationship between the physical positioning of the thermal camera with the other sensors. Now, I've already explained how this works in the stereo camera episode, but quite obviously, a thermal camera is different to a standard camera, and that adds two major complications. One, thermal camera doesn't see visible light, it sees heat. So that means a calibration board, which is black and white and depends on the visual differences between the squares, doesn't really work. So the solution is make a calibration board where half the squares reflect heat and half of them absorb it. Then just cook it for a little bit and voila! The thermal camera can see it. 2. The resolution of my thermal camera is different to the resolution of my stereo camera. And this is a problem because inherent to the calibration process is assigning some level of physical meaning to each pixel. But with different resolutions, 1 pixel from the stereo camera might correspond to 1 centimeter squared, whilst 1 pixel from my thermal camera might correspond to 3.4 centimeters squared. It just doesn't work. I'm almost ready to give up, and I'm just gonna try, instead of calibrating with different resolution, I'm gonna try crop my big image, being the stereo camera image, to be the same resolution as my thermal camera image. Tell me why that won't work. Tell me, I dare you. This is literally original sin on the calibration streets. Among other reasons, part of the calibration process involves getting rid of artifacts like pin cushion and fisheye from the data. These distortions generally occur around the borders of the image. So when you crop it, you get rid of useful data that allows the algorithm to compensate. So one of the solutions that my colleagues found was calibrate each camera separately and then use some fancy maths to relate the two positions after the fact. It seemed to work for them, so why not for me? I mean, it kinda worked, but there was a key assumption that I had overlooked. When it comes to overlaying the thermal data on top of the stereo camera data, an assumption in the solution my colleague found was made. Everything was assumed to lie in the same plane as the calibration board. This is because there is no actual ground truth distance information present in the calibration process. So you can see when overlaying the thermal data on top of the normal camera data, it works in the regions around the checkerboard. But as soon as you look in the background, you start to see parallax error occurring. This issue had me stumped for a while. And then I realized I had been blindly following the paths of others. Why am I trying to calibrate the thermal camera to the stereo camera? I have a freaking LiDAR, for Pete's sake. And on top of that, I have already worked out how to calibrate the LiDAR to the stereo camera. You see, once the calibration board is all heated up and the thermal camera can see it, it is the identical situation. Stupid. The LiDAR is the obvious choice for centering the whole calibration scheme around because implicit to the LiDAR data is 3-dimensional information. So I heated up that calibration board and whipped up another experiment. But instead of the stereo camera, I paired the thermal camera with the LiDAR. And it was a raging success. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you've seen a picture before. Some of you may have even seen a LiDAR scan before, maybe even a thermal picture, but have you ever seen a thermal LiDAR scan? LiDAR, if you will. Boom, baby! Alright, this, I'm going to bed. For realsies though, I really hope you enjoyed that vloggy content. Hopefully it worked. It took a lot of time to make, but I had a lot of fun. So I would really appreciate it if you just that subscribe button for me and like and all that good stuff. It helps a lot. I mean, do you want Antarctica to be saved or not? The ball's kind of in your court. You know what to do. This is literally original sin on next. I was hoping I'd have to only do one take for that. Oh.